I didn't plan on being anyone's savior. I wasn't even planning on being a stepfather. Life has this funny way of handing you roles you never auditioned for. But here I am, telling you the story of how I ended up stepping into the most difficult, complicated, and meaningful chapter of my life, because my stepson needed help, and no one else stepped in. It all started after I married Rachel. She had a son, Nathan. He was 11 at the time. Skinny kid. Eyes that looked like they'd seen too much already. He didn't say much, didn't smile much either. I didn't take it personally, though. I was the new guy, and he'd already been through more changes than most kids should. His dad had been out of the picture since Nathan was 6. Walked out one day and never really looked back. He'd send birthday cards late sometimes, a phone call here and there, but Nathan, he stopped waiting. You could see it in the way he sat at the dinner table. That kind of silence doesn't come from peace. It comes from disappointment. At first, I tried to respect the boundaries. I didn't want to force anything. I figured if he wanted to talk, he would. If he wanted to play catch, I'd grab the glove. But weeks turned into months and still nothing. I'd ask him how school was and I'd get a shrug, try to make a joke, and he'd just walk off. Rachel told me, "Don't push. He needs time." But time was running out. I noticed changes, small ones, but enough to make me pause. Nathan started sleeping later and later. His grades started slipping. He'd come home with bruises on his arms. Said they were from gym class. But they didn't look like gym bruises. They looked like pain he wasn't sharing. One night I walked past his room and heard him crying. Not loud, just quiet sobs, muffled into a pillow. I stood there in the hallway, frozen, wanting to help but not knowing how. He didn't know me, not really, and he certainly didn't trust me, but I couldn't ignore it, not anymore. The next morning I sat him down, not with demands, not with rules, just a quiet conversation. "Nathan," I said, "I don't know everything that's going on, but I know something's not right. And I need you to know that if you're hurting, if something's happening, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And I care." He didn't say anything, just stared at the floor. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd overstepped. But later that night, he knocked on my door. He stood there, shaking a little, hands in the pockets of his hoodie. "Can I tell you something?" he whispered. And that was the moment everything changed. Nathan told me about the bullying. A group of older kids had been tormenting him for weeks, taking his lunch, pushing him into lockers, laughing when he cried. He told the school, but nothing happened. Told his mom once, but didn't want her to worry, so he stopped talking about it. Thought maybe it was just something he had to survive. But it was more than that. He told me he didn't feel safe at school, at home, in his own skin. He said he didn't think he mattered. And I swear my heart broke in that moment. I wrapped my arms around him and said, "You matter more than you know, and I promise you, I'm not going to let this continue. We're going to figure this out together." The next day, I was in that principal's office. I was calm but firm. I had the names, the dates, everything Nathan had told me. And I made it clear that if they didn't take action, I'd go higher. I'd go public if I had to, because a kid should never have to suffer in silence while adults look the other way. They finally listened. The boys were suspended. Counseling was offered, and Nathan, he started to change. It didn't happen overnight. Healing never does. But he started talking more. He started smiling again. He'd sit next to me during football games instead of disappearing into his room. We built a bookshelf together in the garage, started playing video games on weekends. He even started calling me Dad one night without warning. Just let it slip like it had always been there. I didn't say anything, just smiled. But inside, I was shaking. You don't become a parent the moment a child is born. You become a parent the moment a child needs you, and you choose to show up. And let me tell you, showing up, it changes you too. I started seeing the world differently. I started thinking about what kind of example I wanted to be. how my choices, my tone, my time, all of it shaped the person Nathan was becoming. And it wasn't just about being there when things were bad. It was about being present, really present, when things were good too. One night, we were sitting in the backyard, just the two of us. He looked up at the stars and said, "I used to think no one saw me, like I was invisible." I asked him, "And now?" He smiled. "Now I know someone does." There it was. The whole journey in one sentence. This isn't just a story about a boy who needed help. It's about how many kids are out there right now, feeling invisible, feeling like no one's coming for them, like their pain isn't big enough to matter, or their voice isn't loud enough to be heard. But it does matter. They matter. Every single one. Sometimes all it takes is one person to step in. Not because they have to, not because they're perfect, but because they choose to. Nathan's older now. He's 17, still has those eyes, but now there's light in them. He volunteers at a local youth center, mentors younger kids. Told me the other day he wants to study psychology. I asked him why. He said, "Because I want to help kids the way you helped me." That's when I realized this wasn't just about saving one boy, it was about starting a chain reaction. Didn't step in to be a hero. I stepped in because I couldn't stand by and watch him fall. I didn't fix everything. I made mistakes. I doubted myself 100 times, but I kept showing up. And maybe that's what love really is. It's not about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. So if you're watching this and there's a kid in your life who's hurting, I'm telling you, don't wait. Don't assume someone else will handle it. Don't underestimate what your presence can do. Sometimes all it takes is one person, one conversation, one moment of courage. Be that person. Because the truth is, when you step in for someone else, you're not just saving them, you're saving yourself too. This was our story, and I hope, in some small way, it inspires you to start yours. You never really know the moment your life is about to change. It doesn't come with a warning. It doesn't knock politely and ask if it can come in. It just walks in, uninvited, and leaves everything different. That's exactly what happened the day I realized my stepson needed help, and no one else was stepping up. So I did. I never saw myself as a stepfather. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I fell in love with Rachel, and she came with an 11-year-old boy named Nathan. He was quiet, kind of closed off. His eyes said more than his mouth ever did, and I tried to give him space. I figured he just needed time to warm up to me. That's what everyone told me. But weeks passed, and then months, and something still didn't feel right. He wasn't just quiet, he was withdrawn, like he was hiding inside himself. And every time I tried to connect, it was like running into a wall. I'd ask how school was, shrug. I'd offer to help with homework. He'd mumble that he didn't need it. And when I looked at him, really looked, I saw pain behind those eyes. Not just the regular kind of growing up pain, this was deeper. I remember one night I passed his room and heard him crying into his pillow. That sound, it shook something in me. I wanted to knock. I wanted to fix it. But I stood there in the hallway frozen, wondering if I even had the right to get involved. I wasn't his dad. I was just the guy his mom married. The next morning, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I sat him down at the kitchen table, just me and him, and I said, "Nathan, I know we haven't talked much. I know I'm not your dad, but I care about you. I see you hurting, and I need you to know that whatever's going on, you don't have to carry it alone. I'm here. No pressure, no judgment, just here." He didn't say anything, just looked down at his cereal. I figured maybe that was it. Maybe he wasn't ready, and I told myself to be patient. But later that night, there was a knock at my bedroom door. It was Nathan. He stood there in his pajamas, hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes red, and all he said was, Can I talk to you? That night changed everything. He told me everything he'd been keeping in, about the bullying at school, about how the other kids pushed him around, called him names, laughed when he cried. He told me how he tried to tell a teacher once and they brushed it off. Said it was just boys being boys. He didn't want to worry his mom, so he kept it inside. And the weight of it all, it was breaking him. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't try to fix anything in that moment. I just let him talk. Because sometimes what a kid needs most is someone to simply hear them. And when he finished, I looked him in the eyes and said, "Nathan, you never have to go through this alone again. I've got your back, always." The next day, I called the school. I was calm, but direct. I told them what had been going on. I gave them names, dates, everything Nathan told me. I made it clear that I wasn't going to let this slide, and that if they didn't take action, I would take it further. I wasn't trying to start a war. I just wasn't willing to let a good kid get crushed under the weight of being ignored anymore. To their credit, the school finally acted. The boys involved were suspended. Counseling was offered, and slowly, Nathan started to breathe again. He started smiling more, laughing. He'd sit on the couch with me during football games. We'd go to the park, shoot hoops. He even started calling me Dad. The first time he said it, it was casual, like it just slipped out. But man, it hit me like a truck. I didn't say anything, just smiled, but inside, I was holding back tears. Nathan is older now, and when I look at him today, I see a young man who knows his worth, who knows what it means to be seen, to be valued. And I think back to that night at the kitchen table. What if I hadn't said anything? What if I kept waiting for him to come around? What if I had told myself it's not my place? That one conversation saved his life. And honestly, it changed mine too. This story isn't just about my stepson. It's about every kid who's struggling in silence, every kid who feels invisible. And it's about how sometimes the people who step in aren't the ones you expect. If there's someone in your life who seems distant, withdrawn, or not quite themselves, don't wait. Don't assume they're fine just because they say they are. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "I'm here. I see you, and you matter." Because when no one else steps in, you can, and that makes all the difference.